Hello, it is Dr. Chris Raquel and I'm back again with another video. I hope you are doing amazingly. And if you like my content, please like, comment, and subscribe. You can send an email to askkrystalracuqel@gmail.com if you have any questions that you'd like me to answer on video. I have a topic that I'd like to discuss with you all. It is something that I think a lot of us need to hear sometimes. It's related to timelines, just knowing that not everyone's timeline is the same. We all have different timelines. Someone may get married at 25, another person may get married at 40. And it's not our job to see people at certain ages and think to ourselves, hey, I wish that was me. Why didn't this happen for me? Why am I 38 and I'm not married, and so-and-so was able to get married at 22, 23, 24, 25. That's not fair. Why me? Why me? Why me? We have to remember that there's a different timeline for all of us, and sometimes things happen for a reason. There may be delays that are outside of our control. There may be delays that are due to our own doing, but we have to always just understand that everything can be worked out for God's good. And also there's situations where people, they may look at someone, they may have came out of college at 22, 23, and then they got a great job. They were able to get into a role where they're able to move on and move up quickly. And maybe someone else is 35 and they feel like they haven't, moved forward. They've had difficulty getting jobs or getting promotions and things like that. That reminds me of a situation where at one point I came into a job. It was a job with 4 different levels. Initially there were 3, and I'll explain a little bit about it. So imagine that there's reps at one position, then there's supervisors. I came in as a supervisor, and then there's another role here, and then there's the main manager role. There's 2 people in this role. So I did not come in as a rep. I came in as a supervisor based on my experience and my education. And about 2 months later, I was promoted to this role. So I have a manager here. He's managing a team of 10 supervisors. Then there's another manager who's managing a team of 10 supervisors. So there's 20 supervisors total under 2 different people who are in this high role. So there's reps, supervisor, who are managing many people in the rep role, and then this manager and the other manager decided that they wanted to promote people. So I was promoted within 2 or 3 months to this role. And then, strangely enough, by the grace of God, months later, my main manager, and another manager decided that they were leaving. And then they looked at the people who were in this role. It's about 5 of us total. So a whole bunch of people here as reps, 20 initially as this role, 5 here total, and then 2 people in this role, and they left and they looked for people to promote in this role, which I was one. So within 5 months or 6 months, I moved 2 levels. There are many people who were in the supervisor role, 20 of us total. We all were different ages and stuff like that. You come in at that role and you're fine. And then you get promoted in a couple months with 4 other people. There were people who were much older than me in that role, in the supervisor role. They were not promoted for whatever reason. It's everything in God's timing. I was faithful to God, and for whatever reason, that main manager chose me as one of the people to be promoted. Although there were a lot of people who were much older than me. So imagine this. After being moved to that role, then we moved to his main role. And that role, I will say, when I first got that position, I was just shocked. I never imagined that role would have been handed to me. It was a shock to me because I had looked at that manager in such a way. I respected him so much. So to then be promoted to that role after a few months, I was shocked and I was thankful. I say all that to say, when I had moved to that role, the people who were much older than me, the way they looked, the way they behaved, they started to I guess be disobedient. And I could tell that some of it had to do with the fact that they were envious that I had been promoted and they were not. And I'm someone, I like to say for sure, like, you know, I value people who have experience, people who are older than me. I truly believe that people have to, you know, respect people who are older than them for the most part. Um, but just by looking at them, I could see why they would not have been promoted. Like, let's say this lady over here, she's gossiping about people. Let's say this lady over here always refuses to do what the man who was all of our boss tells them to do. So of course, those are things that are going to get people not promoted. And I say all that to say everyone's timeline is different. So let's say I was someone at the, I don't know, I can't remember how old I was at the time. Let's say I came in, let's say I was 28. Now someone who's 50, they could be looking and saying, how'd she get that role? It took me, I've been in and out of these different jobs. I've been working in you know, restaurant management for all these years. Although it's not the same field, but it's management. Why would I not get promoted just because she has a degree in that field? And no, that wasn't the reason why. It was also because I, you know, was respectful of my manager. I was professional, not talking about people, doing a good job. Those are the main reasons. Of course, the education helps. But you can't look at other people and what they're doing. I just use myself as an example, but there's so many different examples, and I'm sure you all have been in those types of situations where someone will be looking at someone and they're thinking of all these negative things because in a way they wish it was them, and then they'll think of reasons. They'll start thinking, well, why not me? Why did this person end up getting this and I didn't? And you know, maybe it's just, maybe you've been in that situation where you felt that way. Just, you know, we have to just be careful because God has a plan for all of us. No one's life is easy. And I know sometimes people might even look at me in my life, just people like who know me, and they may think to themselves, how has she done this? How was she able to do this? How was she able to graduate with her doctorate at 40 weeks or at over 40 weeks pregnant? How was that possible? How could she do it? She makes everything look so easy. That's not fair. And I always say, don't just stop watching people. My life isn't easy. No one's life is easy. Just because you see someone, you might think that they're doing well for themselves. You might think that things are going well. Yeah, everything is well for me because I have Christ. Everything. I love my life. I am filled with joy and happiness and peace because I have God. I'm strong because of God. But that doesn't mean that life is easy. That's something that I learned. I learned that life is not easy. God never said your life was going to be easy. He said he will be with you at every point in your life. And that's what brings me peace. That's what brings me joy. And we need to stop looking at people's timeline and thinking that it's supposed to be ours. Or looking at people's timeline and thinking and getting upset at people for God doing things in their lives. God can do the same for you. I think I said in another video before that I've said to myself in the past, God, I know you did that for that person, so I know you can do it for me. You know, when we have Christ, God is going to see us through on the path that we need to go through. We have to trust in him, take steps to move forward, and have faith. I had a conversation with my younger sister recently. She talked about someone that she knew that they always talked about faith. They have faith in all these things, and she kind of felt like that person was a little delusional. And when she described it, this individual, they said they had a lot of faith, but they would do nothing. They felt that God was just going to drop things in their lap, that everything was just going to work out because they trusted in God. God is not going to just randomly give you everything, provide all these things for you, and you don't work and you're being lazy. So that was a situation for that person. But of course, God can move mountains. He's a miracle worker, but he wants us to take the steps. He wants us to be ambitious. He wants us to reach our potential and become a success. That's what God wants for us. He does not want us to stand back, just sit there and not move, you know. And of course there are times when, like I said, there's miracles. You could have maybe made some mistakes, and then now you've really come before God and you're trying to move forward and you need his help. He can work a miracle. But just in general, God talks about that in the scriptures. I wish I would have brought scriptures for this, but it talks about laziness, and you know, you need to work to eat, you know, especially as men. But basically I'm saying we have to just be careful. Don't be so worried about other people. I've told you all before, there's times where people are looking at people, they're focused, this person moving on up, doing what they have to do. They're stuck looking at here. So this person's moving up. This person has their tunnel vision where they want to go, and this person just steady looking at them. What are they doing? What are they doing? And then this person is still stuck here because they don't want to go on their own path and do what God has for them. So please, just really focus on God. Focus on what you are meant to do. Focus on your purpose on this earth. Focus on who God called you to be. You could be a chef. You could be a designer. You could be an architect. You can be a electrician. There's so many different things. You could be a therapist. You can be a psychologist. You could be a worker. You could be a librarian. Sorry, a worker at like a restaurant. You could be a manager somewhere. You know, there's different plans, and you have to just walk through it. And there's certain times where there's certain jobs that may not be your path, may not be your final career, your final outcome, but there's different things that God uses to grow you and strengthen you. I remember one job that I did where I had to go around. I was like knocking on doors to sell a product. And that strengthened me so much. Like, there's certain things, like, yes, that job has nothing to do with what I'm doing now or what had to do with my future, but it definitely helped me, and it strengthened me in a way. It helped me see, like, oh, I can do all these stuff. It's not hard. I can do a lot of different things without what's the word? Yeah, I could do a lot of things, and some people purchased what I was buying, some people didn't. That was a very interesting job. But yes, basically, don't compare yourself. Your timeline is not theirs. Their timeline is not yours. And what I was saying about the work situation, like, some of those ladies, it was clear they were like upset, and they had nothing to do with my work. It had nothing to do with you know, what I was doing. It was just out of, you know, wishing that it was them. But then also they weren't doing what they're supposed to do to get those roles. And it wasn't something I was like trying to go for. I believe they asked me to do it. Both times, actually. You know, God is that was a time in my life where I was just so blessed, and I was just so happy that God was able to move me forward and so quickly, and I was just so excited and happy for that. It just makes me, you see my smile on my face, it's just me smiling, remembering like how grateful I was that God was able to do that. And I'm smiling not because it was me, I'm smiling because I see God's goodness and how he did that for me. And maybe even at the time I wasn't even thinking so much about it. I remember I was like very nervous to take on the higher level role, but I'm just smiling because I know that it was God and it wasn't me. And then really, like, I really just pray that people would just be able to accept their path. And also, one other thing is, if you for some reason feel like your life is not going well, sometimes God is using it as a test. He wants to train you. It could be to strengthen you. There's been times in my life where things weren't going that great, and I realized that it was to strengthen me. The reason why I'm strong is because of those experiences, and that may be what God is doing for you. So accept it. Don't look at other people and feel like you need their life or that they are doing better than you because you don't have what they have. Don't do that, because you're going to miss out the blessing and the lesson that God is using your situation to do for you. In addition, you need to just watch out for what you're saying about other people, how you're treating other people along the way, because you need to look at what your motives are for some of the things that you want. If you see somebody have a promotion, and let's say you weren't even up for that promotion, so now why do you say you wish you had that role, you should be in that role, they shouldn't have it? You didn't even want that role. You were the one that was talking, saying, oh, you know, I don't want that role because, you know, it's too much work and all these things. And now that somebody else has it, you think you're more deserving, and now you're upset, you know? Or are you saying you want these roles, you want to do this thing because you want to be able to throw it in someone's face and say you were able to do something? Do you want money and fame and all these things because you want to be able to throw it in someone's face who you feel mistreated you? You want to let your ex-boyfriend know that you were able to make it even though he wasn't supporting you? Think about all those things, because God knows our heart. God knows what he needs to do in our lives for us to be able to come out. And everything in my life is for God's glory. I see, looking back, anything was for God's glory. Everything was to, you know, moved me forward. So I just say that to you as well. Look at your life, look at anything that has happened, look at how you were able to grow, look at how situations and tests cause you to be able to make better decisions to follow the next time you encountered something like what happened before. And then also just look and just be grateful for what you have. Be grateful. There was a time in my life where I felt like I was like, I I had a place where I was living, and I felt like after college I was like, well, this is not where I plan to stay. This is not going to be my final apartment. I'm going to end up just being here, so it's not that big of a deal. Like, it's just whatever. I'm going to just move forward. I'm going to just, get out of here. Can you believe I like never really like furnished it like as me? Because I was like, oh, I'm just gonna be here for like a year. It wasn't right after college, but it was like a few years later. That was like a place that I stayed, and I was like, no, it's not important to me. It's whatever. I'll start, decorating and do all that stuff once I get my real house. Once I move and get a better place, a place that I feel like it's like a little bit bigger. Then I'll worry about it. This is just temporary. Can you believe that I ended up staying at that place for 8 years because I told myself I hated moving, and I said I was gonna just stay here, and eventually I would get married and I'll move and do those things. Or if I felt I had a need to move, at the time I didn't feel like I had a need to move. So all that time I was just like, no big deal. This is not my final destination. And you see all those 8 years, not all the 8 years, I'll say the last 3 years, I finally decided to, make it my own. But you see, like, we don't know our timeline. So if that's you, if you're saying to yourself, I'm in this place, but this is not where I'm gonna stay. This could even be your place where you live. This could even be your job. Make the most of where you are. Don't be always thinking about the past. Don't be always thinking about what's up ahead. Think about the now, what you can do to make where you are enjoyable. That could be your place where you're living. Think about just anything, even your workplace, right? Don't say, well, I'm just here. This is just temporary. I'm just working here for the summer while I finish college, or I'm just working here for a year, then I'm out. You don't know. That time frame can turn into something long. Or maybe if you're such a good worker in the summer, you might get a promotion. Maybe they have another role for you in a different location where you are at school, or if you were to move, and maybe they're going to say, oh, that person was a really good worker. Or maybe you need to move for some other reason in the future. They remember you when you try to apply for a job. You never know if you might be in need for something. You do not know that. So just always be respectful of where you are. Always, honor the position that you have at the time, because God is going to use that for something greater. Honor your timeline. Everyone's timeline is different. You also don't want to burn bridges with people. So, always recognize that God is the one that's going to direct your steps, like he says in the Bible. He is going to be with you. You don't have to be battling against other people saying, please, I didn't get that job because so-and-so, how did what's her name get that job? This person's so lazy. They're in this role. That's one thing that reminds me. That's one thing that it reminds me of some things that I've been in. I will say for most of my life, I've always said that I like my managers. There's been times where maybe somebody's a little, annoying and stuff, but that's one thing I think is so important. Do not get in the habit of, talking about people. I've been talking about a lot of work situations. You might not really like your manager that much, but the question is why? Do you feel like you can do better than them in that role? I know that in a lot of my jobs, there's been people around me who were quick to always talk about their managers. And then, of course, those people would usually not end up getting hired. Worry about your own timeline. Don't be trying to worry about how you wish you could have had that job, or how you wish you could do their job better. That makes me remember a situation with me. I specifically, in that job that I was telling you about, there were people when I first got promoted, when I first moved up from the supervisor role, people were in and out in those types of jobs, so there's high turnover sometimes. And there were people in my group, in the reps, that I had liked, thought they were, doing a good job. And I eventually there are people that I wanted to train pretty much to eventually become, to take over the role that I previously had. So there were two people, and can you believe, when my manager, the one that was like a level up, when he was asking for people, I wrote such good things about these two people and how I want them to move forward. And then the manager, he came to me and he was like, no, I'm not choosing them. I'm not picking those people you sent me, because he sent me what they sent me, what they had said about me. It was bad stuff. But luckily that manager, he loved me. He said, no, please, these people, get them out of here. No, they're not getting promoted. Look at what they're saying to me about you, and I've never had any issue with you. You're the best. You're my best. And he's the one that ended up promoting me to, like, recommending me for his role. So even something like that even showed me, like, to always be more observant and discerning of people, because these are people that I was, in my mind, trying to help them, trying to elevate them. And you see how people don't even know. They don't know why you're doing what you're doing, why you're wanting them to do certain things when you're not available, why they're wanting you to have certain responsibilities. Because, I say all this to say, by you talking about your managers, by you saying bad things, by you refusing to do work, saying things that you're not going to do, you're going to cut off your blessing. Instead of talking about people, do your work, honor who your leadership is, which is your manager, and you could be getting promoted. So it's very sad. Those two people, they could have got a promotion. They could have gotten into the role that I previously had, but because of them being, like, envious or being used to talking disrespectfully about their managers, unfortunately they were not promoted. And I don't know, could have been something to do with racism, because they were both. But my manager was also a Caucasian, and he loved me. And, maybe they felt because he was a Caucasian, they could say stuff about me and that he would side with them. But please, that my manager was very, down, like, meaning to say he was very used to being around people of different cultures, different backgrounds. He had a lot of job experience working with, like, treatment centers, like medical, and, like, people who had, like, substance issues. So he had seen all people from all walks of life. So he not racist whatsoever, but maybe they felt that they were able to, talk to him and he'll be on their side. But he was like, get these people out of here. Anyway, I still like to say, know your timeline, know who you are, know that God has a plan for you. Not everything's going to be easy. There's been times in my life where things were not easy, and I was able to move forward. I was able to trust in God. Stop thinking that your timeline is someone else's. It is not. It's not. Focus on yourself. Focus on what you can do in that moment to better yourself and to move yourself forward. You can't stay focused on other people, because it's going to be difficult for you. It's going to be harder for you to move forward and take those steps up. People's lives are not what you think they are. So I'll say I'm graceful. I can make things look easy. That doesn't mean my life is easy, because, like I said, God said your life, he never said your life is going to be easy. Some people might get things handed to them. For instance, some people are born into wealth, and, some people are, rich. But we see even with the celebrities, their lives are not simple. Their lives are not easy. It's not what you think it is. And, they may have a lot, but that doesn't mean they have everything, right? Like, I may be happy, I may be joyous, because I know I have God. I know I'm going to trust him in all things. And that's what you have to do. I can't remember who I spoke to about this. I think it was my mom. She spoke about her mother, my grandmother. She spoke about one time, when they were growing up, her and one of her siblings, they were both very ill. There was some sort of illness that was going around, and they almost lost their lives. And she said that my grandmother, her mother, was telling her their story. Like, she came to the point where she just said, okay, God, if something happens, if they're no longer with me, I have to just understand and accept that you're still God. You're still good. You are the one who's in charge. And that's just something that's so beautiful. My mom, like, she felt, like, emotional, like, thinking about it, just knowing that you have to always have faith in God regardless. And, God is going to see you through. You have to just trust in him. Like I said, your timeline is not someone else's. God has something in store for you. Always remember that, and never seek someone else's life. Never seek someone's path. It's completely different. If you try to take over someone's path, you're going to be led to destruction. If you are, if God put it in your heart that you're going to be a painter and an artist, and then you see somebody else who's doing well as a I don't know, as an architect, which is a little bit different, like designing buildings, and then you say, you know what, that person is doing amazing. They told me it's a good job. They told me I should come do it with them. And even though your path in your heart is to be an artist, a painter, now you say, well, he said architect. He said it's the best path I should do. He's doing amazingly. I'm gonna do it, and then you fail. Because that's not where your heart is, and not what God had for you. So just always remember, you are you. God has something in store for you. And even let's say you do have something in store. Let's say you want to be an artist and a painter, and there's somebody who's maybe being more successful at it than you. That doesn't mean that they're better than you. That doesn't mean that you are doing something wrong. Your timeline is different. Your timeline is different. Look at me. I was married at 34 years old. I believe the timeline that I thought I was supposed to have at the time when I was probably 18 was probably like, I'll be married by 25, 26. But that's because my mom was married at 24, so I just figured it'd be around there. That didn't happen, and of course, not everything I did was perfectly to that point, but I know in that time frame, God was growing me, and I needed to reach a certain point before marriage. God knew where I needed to be emotionally, spiritually, and just everywhere overall to be able to get to where he had for me. God knew that, so I had to wait until it was my time. And in that time, I wasn't looking at other people and saying, well, why did so-and-so get married at this age? They are part of my family. That is not right. That's not fair. What happened to me? No, you have to just trust in God and make sure you're in prayer and all those things. And of course, I've always had faith that eventually, you have to have faith. I did have faith that I would get married. I just didn't know when, So just know your timeline is not someone else's. God has something in store for you. Use this time to be able to trust in him, and, he's going to build you up. We're not going to always get everything that we ask for in our timeline. It's not our timeline. It's God's timeline. We have to trust him, move forward, and do what's right, and God is going to be with us regardless. So I hope this video meant something to you, and it, touched you in some way and helps you understand that your timeline is not yours. God has a different timeline for everybody. Have a blessed day. Bye.